send you. Let's see. Okay, we're live. We're live, everyone. We'll start for a little bit of people to join, and me and my buddy Dan Albert will be talking about fights. I'll be sharing the link. Oh, I'll send you the link so you can share too. There you go. If you want to send to anyone in particular, you do the tweet, and I'll put the link under it. Okay, yes. If you want to send it through DMs, it's fine. Okay, let me go back to this. The live streaming. Okay, we have 2 viewers supposedly. So, hey George, how are you? Glad to have you here. We'll be waiting. We are sharing, and we'll be talking about fights very soon. Oh yes, please, Ghost. If you can share the link, that would be appreciated. Oh, we have Miguel over here too. That's great. Okay, got your. Oh my god, this is like a little bit intense. I had like 100 different softwares working, so I'm lagging a little bit, but we should be good. Okay. Okay, I'll throw this over here. Okay. I think we're lagging a little bit, but we should be good to go. What is this? Okay, let me adjust some sources. Okay, we have people over here. Do we sound fine to you guys? We need some feedback, please. And if the video is working, that would be great. So I mean, we probably sound awful, but are the levels like okay? If the levels are okay, we can start talking about fights. Okay, no one is replying, but I guess we just... Oh, I missed to share. Oh no, you did share on the Discord, so we're good. Okay. Oh yeah. Apparently, people cannot hear Dan. Talk, please. According to my levels, I can hear you, but apparently people can't. Let me sort out that a little bit. We'll get into that. Okay, people cannot hear you. Yeah, you're not coming through on the track, so we'll try to get this sorted out. Okay, talk now. Okay. Okay, we're having a little bit of trouble here. I'll try to sort this out a little bit. No idea what's going on here. According to my levels, I'm listening to you, but apparently people are not getting your audio. No idea what's the deal there. No, it's probably from my end, but that's... Okay, should be my... talk, please. Okay. Okay. Guys, give me a little bit and we'll get that sorted out. So I need you to... Okay, I think I have something. Okay, talk now.
Talking now. Platypus attacks.
Should be working now. Hey, okay. Finally.
Okay. Oh.
Finally fix it. Okay, is there any overlap between me and Dan, or are we sounding fine? Or can you hear me through Dan's channel, or vice versa? If you guys can let me know, so we can finally start talking about fights. But it seems like it is working now.
If it doesn't work, just so you know, everyone in this chat will have to pay $10. There's a fee for this,
Okay,
I think.
people say we're good. So
Okay.
okay, so welcome everyone. I'm Feño from the Fight Side. This is my dear friend and former co-host of the fall preview, Dan Albert. And we're here to talk about UFC 308 because it had like the most important fight of the year, especially when it comes to people that care about skill and those silly stuffs like that, right? How are you, Dan?
I'm good. I am turning into Uncle Fester, in case you're all wondering. If you don't know who that is, just look up the Addams Family. I am going to smash this new role I'm in.
Everyone's very happy to have you on the Adams family. So, UFC 308. This went down in Abu Dhabi on Saturday. Some of you guys might have seen my live reaction to the co-main and main event, but we're here to talk a little bit about the dynamics of the matchup, what made it a great fight, because I feel like we both agree it was a great fight, right?
Yeah.
A great performance by a rising pound for pound talent in Ilya Topuria. So all of that pretty cool stuff, right? So going into the fight, what were your expectations about this fight, Dan?
So my very first thought was it's going to be a really big test of Holloway's ability to create feelers and feeders at distance versus how effective Topuria's footwork is at bridging that gap. Because in many ways, Holloway hadn't fought someone with the kind of pressure footwork that Topuria had. But likewise, Topuria hadn't dealt with someone who could really draw out the kind of exchanges for the purpose of extending them. Like Volkanovski, he likes to sharpshoot out to reposition or mitigate you, but Holloway wants you to throw back so he can set up something longer off of that. And so it was kind of an interesting question of me of asking, okay, based upon what I know about these two guys, which do I favor? And I sort of felt to myself that I trusted Holloway's game to play into that because I didn't know how Topuria dealt with someone who could get him into those longer engagements or how safe he could be because I had seen him punished with some previous fights for that. Um, but I did have concerns with Holloway's like cagecraft and like well, I'm not one to like go into the whole like decline aspect. Like I do think it was fair to assume that like Topuria did have the explosiveness to hurt him. Knock him out wasn't something I saw on the cards quite yet, which was where I was definitely wrong. But yeah, I mean, some of those reads were right. It's just Topuria ended up being able to do those things, find in more. It was really, really impressive. More on that later.
Yeah, it was like we knew that Topuria had like skills, right? We've seen him. We saw him go 5 rounds with Josh Emmett, which like clearly a level below the likes of Volkanovski and Max Holloway, but still a very comprehensive performance when where he had to show up quite quite a bit of his toolkit, right? And and then he had the performance with Volkanovski where you could argue that Volkanovski didn't show up with like the right approach to face him, but Topuria still had to find answers to the game plan of Volkanovski. It's not like Volkanovski was doing nonsense out there. It was like maybe not his best path to victory, but Volkanovski is still a very skilled fighter, very physically potent, and someone that you have to figure stuff out because he comes into the fights with a game plan. And going into this fight, it felt like a lot of people felt like Holloway was a more complicated matchup to Topuria than Volkanovski. Harder to punish, harder to press back to the cage, uh, more more confident into the firefight, right? Than Volkanovski, that as we were saying, is someone that likes to keep the fights clean, and that's what he had to do in his third fight with Max Holloway to get that very dominant victory. So all of us we were kind of expecting that Topuria was going to walk through the fire here to get Holloway to the places that he wanted, namely behind the black bar on the octagon against the fence, to exchange where a lot of us felt that Topuria had an advantage, not only in punching mechanics and power, but also because he's like in a very like first layer, he has better defense inside the pockets than Holloway, just because of his mechanics. Like, he's always behind his lead shoulder. His punching mechanics leave less openings, while Holloway stands tall, stays a little bit taller. So we knew that it's going to be complicated for Holloway if they exchange it like in completely 50-50, a completely 50-50 scenario, right? So what we wanted was, what Max Holloway wanted was to either like avoid exchanges or dictate exchanges. That was something that he did very well in his fight against Justin Gaethje, right? Are you there, Dan?
Yeah, I'm still here. Sorry, you blurred out for a moment. What was that last part?
That what Holloway wanted to do in this fight is that it was to either avoid exchanges or dictate the terms on the exchanges were happening, and that's what he did against Justin Gaethje very successfully, right?
Yeah, for sure. So against Gaethje, Holloway, part of it tied into Gaethje's career habits of always like being very reactive to kind of feints and like his own like discipline with pressure kind of going away. But even then, Holloway had a lot of pressure diffusing tactics, specifically like his trademark like right hand trap and right hand threatening tools. He definitely showed refinements of those same things in this fight, actually. But interestingly, that also kind of was a reason he got in huge trouble, and kind of what signaled the beginning of the end of this fight. And we'll get to that. But yeah, I don't think Holloway went away from like ever like truly like being the kind of guy to put a pace on you, but he's kind of refined himself to like being more of a neutral ground player with that kind of thing. But he's always been pretty good at that. It's kind of been more what he's catered towards the last few years. And so against Topuria, who was going to come forward, yeah, it was going to be a test of his ability to preserve that distance. And this is a conversation I had with someone recently, but I don't really know if Max likes to have proximity with guys who are like that much smaller than him out of comfort, unless he knows he can outtrade them. With Topuria, there's not really like a big guarantee with that, but Topuria also didn't exactly let him get into those positions for free anyways. So we kind of got the fight that we did, which on that note was really fucking good.
I was very competitive, right? Like, emphatic knockout aside, it was a very closely contested fight. You can tell that if this was going to go longer, it was going to be a moments versus minutes fight where Max Holloway was going to be constantly winning until Topuria was landing something to tip the scale on his favor. And to be fair, like, Topuria was doing his fair share of work, landing a decent volume, and making his volume count every time that he was landing. I thought one interesting thing about Topuria in this fight were the leg kicks. They looked a lot more refined than in the Volkanovski fight. They were very effective. Holloway is like really tough. The rare fighter that you rarely see hurt to the body and legs, but you can tell that the leg kicks were taking a toll on the movement of Holloway as much as he wanted to hide it. And to be honest, like, I feel like Holloway like rarely feels pain, because even if we go back to that finishing sequence, Topuria landed his huge left hook to the body that has folded many opponents in the past. And it clearly hurt Max Holloway, but Holloway regained his composure after that. Or at least was able to put on a poker face. So that was very impressive. But yeah, it was a battle of... the fight was like a battle of Max using his variety, using his own jab. It was a battle of jabs, pretty much, at open space. Max Max Holloway not putting a lot into his jab, mostly trying to set up the right hand and the kicks with his jab, was using to interrupt Topuria, to put the volume out there, to pushing him back. And Topuria, on the other hand, was using more of a battering ram of a jab, very hard, throwing to the chest a lot, which was something that I liked a lot. And something that commentary was missing, like Felder was saying, like, oh, Topuria is not going through to the body match, but he was catching Max to the body, to the chest, and to the abdomen with that powerful jab. So the jab the battle was interesting, and then it was on Topuria to close the distance, right? Because Holloway was establishing a long distance with his kicking game, with the blitzes. He was fighting outside his own jabbing range, so it was on both guys to close the distance like that. And Topuria was doing a brilliant job of varying his tempo with his jab, throwing a beautiful right hand over the top with very little tail that was catching Holloway with no setup a lot of times. And also with his head movement, right? What was very surprising in this fight was the ability of Topuria to slip to the inside of Holloway's jab and not getting punished with the right hand. What do you think about that?
I think that's definitely one of the craziest parts about this fight, because like you've seen guys who avoid like stepping into the fire with Holloway, as far as basically asking yourself, well, okay, conventionally there are two ways to handle someone with Holloway who puts on that much like volume if you're stepping in with him. One, you match him for volume, or two, you're able to like punch him basically.
Yeah.
That is, hurt him. And like Poirier could do both. Volkanovski could basically like temporarily be in there and then step back out, because he refused to go into extensive like firefighting with Holloway ever. But like, and Aldo could like back him off and outposition him, but he couldn't eventually get away because it catered into Aldo's game too much. But with Topuria could stay in that fire and afford to not throw that much and just use like the threat of his like looks and pressure and footwork. And it's a really, really impressive showing of just his sheer footwork, or the first thing that I'd say. The second thing is, like, others have emphasized it, but his weight distributions between his front and back foot, as far as being able to lean at the side and give different looks off of his punches, is crazy. There's, like, a sequence in round 2 where he leans to his left side, like, puts some slight pressure on the left to make Holloway think that he's going to, like, step in and hit, like, a hook to the body or step in behind the jab. No, instead, he just, like, is posited and then just throws the right hand out there instead. And those looks played, like, tons of, like, great work at letting him pressure Holloway constantly, but also just being able to hop in and out of exchanges so flexibly. And so, it's a fantastic showing by him that really shows, like, how much insane composure he has, how much awareness he has, and just how disciplined he is. And it's one of the rarer kind of, like, showings I've ever seen from a fighter, because there's been so much, like, in MMA's, like, striking meta as far as getting close to, like, a higher volume archetype throughout the years. And so guys like Topuria, who focus on more of, like, those more, like, less volume but, like, more efficient, accurate work, are very rare and hard to come by in this sport. And even more so being as successful as he is. I think that's the big thing that I saw with Topuria here. Because, once again, stepping into the fire with Max Holloway is stressful as hell.
Yeah. Because the thing is that a lot of fighters might be willing to jump into the fire with Holloway, but then Holloway is good at dictating those, right? So we were talking with Ryan on Twitter earlier today that Holloway's defense, if you like just bump him, is not that great. He relies a lot on spacing. He tries to interrupt your combinations with counters, and if those counters fail, he doesn't have really a system of defense. He's not usually shoulder rolling or moving his head when he's moving back. So if you go at him hard, you can hit him. And we have seen, for example, Dustin Poirier was successful with that, especially using the shifts to close the distance. But then we have seen other fighters like Jose Aldo and Arnold Allen just go in aggressively and hit Holloway early. The problem is that Holloway is very durable, and closing the distance, closing the distance aggressively starts giving out data about you, about your habits, about your entries, and it's also very tiring because Holloway is tall for the division, but he doesn't have crazy reach, but he still likes to establish like a very long range in between both fighters. And for example, Brendan Allen was like on height parity. I think he had reach on Holloway, and he was the southpaw. He was still forced to leap into range time and time again, and you can tell that even though Arnold Allen is a fighter that was like very well conditioned for that fight, he was getting tired, and Holloway eventually got the timing and the moments in between that you are not trying to hit Holloway very hard. Holloway is hitting you a lot and making you more tired, piling up damage. So for Volkanovski and for Topuria, the key for success, and in part for Holloway, for Poirier too, was be able to navigate those in-betweens, you being the puncher, right? And that was something that a lot of fighters that came with some right ideas about how to hit Holloway, for example, Justin Gaethje, Jose Aldo, Arnold Allen, they weren't able to navigate safely those in-between spaces. They were having...
You need ancillary kind of skills
Yeah.
or tactics in order to handle Holloway. It can't just be a your turn, my turn thing.
No, you're gonna lose that one, yeah.
Yeah, it's my turn forever. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what happened to Cater, right? Cater is a skilled boxer, and he couldn't navigate because he was waiting for his turn, and Holloway was like, "Psych, it's still my turn," and that's how it went. And when Holloway has complete control of the initiative, that's when his defense shines, right? Because his control of space is good, his footwork is good, and he uses his lateral movement very well. But when you're dictating, we saw the glimpse, the troubles with his defense. Dustin Poirier did it, forcing him to exchange with an ambidextrous puncher inside the pocket, where Holloway was like, okay, I'm safe from his left hand from this angle, but Dustin Poirier always has the option of the right hook, and that was surprising Holloway in those spaces because he was so used to just worrying about one hand in those crazy exchanges. And that was something that I was thinking about Topuria, that Topuria is very dangerous from both sides. He initially hurt Holloway with the straight right hand off the hand trap of the left hook, and then he finished him off with the left hook as Holloway was trying to exit to his left. So that's something that Holloway can look very good defensively, but if you go at it, if you take initiative from him, you can expose the problem with his defense. The problem is that taking initiative from Holloway is no joke, and that's why so few fighters have been able to do that, and namely just 3 in his prime that are Volkanovski, Poirier, and now Topuria, right?
Right. I think another thing I'd like to touch upon, because there's almost too much to talk about in a fight like this, because like Ghost, you were just talking about this in the chat a second ago. So the rear foot Feño's talking about, it's not just that he like bounces on that to like help him like punch up a little more, which let him cross counter Holloway. It's what's letting him hop out of range more quickly. So like what's apparent really quickly from this fight is he was not like very heavy on his front foot in this fight unless he had Holloway pinned.
Yeah.
Like he was very heavy on that back foot because he was trying to like control the exchanges as much as possible. And so it's another cool thing Topuria did was, I don't know if you saw this, Feño, did you see how active his lead hand was as far as like actively parrying Holloway's like offense when he threw in volume? Because like he would just leave his hand out and just like actively parry things to like get a beat on the triggers, but also just like that constantly keep pressing. And it's a very, very like proficient like hand trapping thing, because like it does risk like you potentially getting cracked because you're leaving so much of your hands out there, like what O'Malley does to Jan at one point in their fight. But Topuria, like by leaving his weight on the back foot, is able to hop out of range and keep that hand out there as a frame just in case. So not just was it like a really effective display of like his versatile lead handwork, offensively and defensively, but just his footwork intertwining with that.
Another thing
And
that also relates to the to putting his foot on the back foot. That is something that maybe a lot of fans associate more with a more kicking style, right? A lot of people associate with Muay Thai, but it's something that you see in boxing quite a bit. While most MMA fans, I guess, are associating a very heavy lead foot with boxing, right? But what Topuria was doing, and it's something that I'm a big fan of, is that he was slipping forwards all the time. You never see Topuria slipping back. He's always slipping on the front foot. And that's where the rear foot comes from, because you lose mobility when you step too hard on the front foot. So what Topuria was doing, he was keeping his weight back, and when it came to time to use his inside or outside slip, he would slip forwards and stay in a balanced stance where he can move again from that position. And that's where he was closing the distance, right? Because he wasn't as heavy on his front foot that he couldn't step again forwards. And that's something that was allowing him to eat space time and time again.
yeah,
And actually, I was surprised
yeah.
because Topuria was not shifting a lot in this fight. He was staying very composed in his stance while moving forwards.
Yeah, it's really impressive because like there's a point where he gets Holloway to the fence, like behind the short right hand, like stepping in behind it, but he immediately like shifts his weight into landing that left hook that stuns Holloway for a second in that second round, I think.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's just a very great display of like his footwork and whatnot. And I think what's also like prevalent is like how much Taporia like really keys in on habits too, which is one thing I highlighted the other day with a clip on my Twitter account. So basically, one of Holloway's go-to tools is he loves using his like rear hand and the orthodox stance to like kind of catch you and like constantly like use that as a trigger to like jab or to preserve distance and some stuff. And so he kind of paid attention to Taporia using his late hand, so he was using his own one to kind of catch that to get his jab going. Or like draw Taporia into longer exchanges to set things up. And it was working really, really well because it was also letting him like frame away and create distance for like those stomp kicks as well. Oh, or like front kicks to the body. Or like where Holloway really had success in this fight is when he started employing throwaways like without worrying about the feints. Because when Holloway starts throwing throwaways, like he can up the tempo of them just because he's one of those guys. And that's where he built momentum. But then Taporia keys in on like that right hand habit for Holloway's jab, and so he starts letting him do it on purpose quite a bit to start timing him with like the right. Because think about it, if Holloway's gonna touch his hand, that's not just a trigger for like Taporia as an offense for Holloway to jab. That's a trigger the other way around for Taporia to step in and crack him with the right, and that's exactly what happened in that third round, like at the very start. That big right he landed that hurts Holloway is because of that right hand trap. And so that leads to the finishing sequence where Holloway likes to try to like frame away. Hey, if you're going to frame like that at that close with your fence back to the fence, and that's an easy like forearm to punch over. And so like it's a really good demonstration as well as like how scary an adjuster is that Taporia picks up on these habits. It's that you have and can really allocate like a really minimalist like tool set in order to punish you. It's like the rarest kind because like for years with these featherweight champions, and there's a story there as well. We've had Volkanovski and Holloway who focus on so much activity or variety that we for a while went away from like what someone like Aldo was good at, and Taporia's kind of brought us back a little bit. These guys who have very, very small, like, actual amounts of tools, but they use them all really, really well, cohesively. And I think that's a really, really fascinating thing that, like, we've come kind of that circle, but we still have, like, a spectrum of, like, what kind of greats we see from this division.
yeah, for sure. For example, Topuria, if you put him in like a very heavy kickboxing fight, he's not going to look like a very nuanced kicker. But the way he incorporated his leg kicks here with his boxing was very intelligent, were very well put together. And and to be honest, he was doing the better damage with kicks in this fight, right? Like Holloway
Mhm.
was attacking body kicks, he was attacking head kicks, but if you go like damage for damage, I feel like the leg kicks for Topuria were a bigger role in the fight overall, right? And that comes to what you were just saying, that is the cohesiveness of everything, that it works, everything makes sense with the other tools, and that's what's so brilliant.
Yeah, I think like it goes without saying though that this was still a really really competitive fight, like a testament to like how good Holloway was because the Volkanovski fight was competitive too, but like Topuria didn't just beat them because these two are past their best. He beat them because he figured them out. He paid attention, did his homework, or matched them skill for skill in their phases, and he found his moment quicker than they did, and that's the sign of greatness right there. So I do think like for what it's worth, with how good Holloway and Volkanovski are, even if they are on the downside most likely with between age and like wear and tear, they're still obviously good enough to still compete in a fight like this. Who knows? They could have answer if they try again if they get that chance. But with how good they looked, Holloway in this fight, like there's no reason to think he's going to go like super downhill, like have a Tony Ferguson decline. So
Yeah,
I know a lot of people are sad because of it, and your favorites get old, your favorites get hurt. It happens. Holloway's currently my favorite MMA fighter, so I get it. But honestly, with how good he looked here, there isn't. I wouldn't come out of this thinking pessimistically. This is just what happens in combat sports, and that's
yeah,
okay.
I feel like Topuria had margins, physical margins on his side for sure. Like Volkanovski and Holloway are up there in age, in damage, but they still look very very good. I rate these two wins very highly. This is not Colby Covington doing the tour of beating all people that are the shell of their former self, right? They are nowhere near that. These are two very very good fighters, maybe a little bit past their prime, but still pound for pound talents right
Yeah,
now.
these are still at worst like top eight guys in the world, like
Yep.
top eight, like at worst. And Taporia beat both of them back to back, and he finished both of them, which is insanity. And I think that fact speaks for itself,
And
really.
not easy guys to finish either. Like maybe you can give some leeway to Volkanovski because he was knocked out like not long before this fight, but for Holloway has been getting hurt a little bit in fights, like rocked maybe, but finish, that's something that
No,
we haven't seen. So that's crazy.
yeah.
Um, what is next for Topuria? Would you be for Islam Makhachev fight, or would you rather him stay at 145 and defend against some of the talent there? Rematch against Volkanovski, the winner of Sterling and Ivloyev. What do you think?
I think by default you have to give Volkanovski another shot. I think he deserves it. I don't really have any interest in seeing like champ fights at the moment. I think like that can become an oversaturated thing real quick, and it doesn't really allow divisions to develop.
And they have challengers right now,
Yeah,
so
they have challengers, true. I think like I think we give Volkanovski another chance, but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens like down the road. Like the sky's the limit for this guy, and he keeps improving every single fight, and he certainly looks the part of the featherweight elite champions that we've had so far, and I think for that reason that's an enormous positive. These are the kinds of like champions you want to dethrone the greats from your division.
yeah.
If we're talking
If it's not Volkanovski, like I feel like he has a very good matchup against either Bloyev or Sterling, but I still it is a good fight that gives you new information about Topuria potentially, because
Mhm.
if it goes long, like grappling heavy fight against either Ivloyev or Sterling, that could get very interesting, right? And the other
Yeah.
thing is that neither Sterling or Ivloyev are like super big for the division, but neither is Topuria. So
Mhm.
so that would be an interesting fight either way. I
Yeah, we
I would pick Topuria easily against either of them, or Diego Lopez too. I don't think he has a very good chance, but are all good fights that would be very good to build the legacy of Topuria and give us more information about him, because there are still a little bit of question marks about some parts of his game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, like I mean Holloway and Volkanovski have both shown he's open on the counter. He's open once you force him into like kind of a distance where he can't really reach you. You can still feed and feint him back. But like until officially you can like have the transitional tools to like keep him in place or like keep with him in the fire like and mitigate his threat compared to yours, or and especially probably the person who probably beats Topuria probably needs to also have like a way to keep him from pressuring you from coming forward, because that was the very first thing like that's super prevalent happened here. It's like, oh, Topuria got Holloway behind the black lines really quickly in this fight. That's not good. And so
Yeah.
so people, I think someone who beats Topuria probably needs to be able to stay in the fire but keep that fire going with him, or keep it out of range altogether and outposition him. And based upon his footwork performances, I don't really know if someone on the feet like that exists without going into like some size parodies at the moment. But I do think a grappling heavy opponent would be interesting for him for sure.
Yeah, for what we've seen for Topuria, he has looked great in the grappling realm
Mm-hmm.
against legit guys like Josh Emmett, obviously a decorated wrestler that doesn't use it much in MMA, but still getting the positions, getting a wrist right on a very accomplished wrestler, it means something. And then you have the fight against Bryce Mitchell. Some people uh, think a lot about that takedown, but I feel like that's a very reckless Topuria that stay very safe on bottom position against a very good top player in Mitchell. Mitchell starting to regress a little bit. Or you can say a lot of things about Bryce Mitchell, but you cannot put in doubt his top game. He's very good from top position. And Topuria was responsible when he got in trouble, and then he submitted when he was the one on top. So I feel like maybe not a super clean performance by Topuria, but if you watch the grappling side of it, it's very impressive. I mean, obviously he hurt him on the feet first, but it still means something. So against someone like Sterling or Ivloyev would be very interesting. Someone that punches very hard and is very aggressive like Diego Lopez. I feel like maybe has a chance. I would pick Topuria very easily there, but I would be lying if I said I wouldn't watch it. I would
Yeah.
watch Topuria against pretty much anyone at this stage.
Yeah, it's hard not to with his improvements, but also just like just seeing what else other looks guys can give him. And I've seen some people like also say like Prime Holloway and Prime Aldo would probably be able to do it, or like a Volkanovski who looked for a clinch more. I don't really like to bank on like the whole like if someone was younger it'd be different kind of predictions because you don't know for sure. But I can understand like maybe an Aldo archetype being an interesting matchup for him if someone develops like that. Though it might end up being like kind of thing where both guys kind of freak each other out at
Yeah,
distance.
the thing about Aldo more than anything is that he has all the tight footwork that Holloway actually doesn't have. So it's way harder to put Aldo against the black line if he doesn't want to be there. Um, we saw against if you go and watch Aldo versus Frankie Edgar 2, Frankie Edgar actually showed up with actually very decent pressuring footwork. He was like hurting Aldo, he was taking diagonal steps, he was pivoting off the rear foot, all the things that you want to see from a pressure fighter. And that's interesting because you don't think about Frankie Edgar as a pressure fighter, but he was playing the role of the pressurer in that one. And Aldo's footwork was immaculate in that fight.
Hmm.
Uh,
The
he
other,
was.
the other, the
No,
other
go
thing
ahead.
about like talking about Taporia and matchups is like, as Hacks just actually pointed out this exact same thing in the chat. We don't know what Taporia's ceiling is yet, but
Yeah, Hux was saying just that on the chat right now. So.
yeah, it's crazy to think of like how good this guy is, and he keeps getting better because there were things like you doubted for him versus Volkanovski. He walked those lines very well. Like Going to Volkanovski, I asked myself, does he have the pressure footwork to fully cut Volkanovski off and punish Volkanovski's defensive responsibilities or irresponsibilities? He did. Against Holloway, I was like, okay, how does he handle being in the fire quite a bit? He handled it, frankly, and with an insane degree of composure. And he keeps showing new looks every single fight. That's a tough guy to beat if that keeps happening. And he's only 27.
Yeah,
And that is stupid.
and not a lot of damage on his way, so he's like en route to have a very good prime if we go by that. He's probably something that to consider though is that he's probably sparring hard in camp because that level of composure it comes from someone that is getting into actual fights. That's not something that you get from playing Peter Patter in the park, you know. But yeah, the clinch. I would say to give some closing thoughts on that, how to beat Topuria thing is that we've seen some vulnerabilities to feints, to kicks, and to clinches. So maybe someone long that is like a very good clincher on top of being like, but you still need to be a decent boxer. You
Yeah.
cannot be like a just like kick on the outside guy because he's going to corral you eventually. But the kick, there might be something there. We've seen a little bit of Topuria in the clinch. He's very strong. He knows how to dirty box. But I felt like Volkanovski was maybe not getting the better of it. But it looked like it could be something that he could be like building off if the fight went were to go on. But but yeah, I mean that's the interesting part is that we'll get to see Topuria against uh, more guys. So that's very cool moving forwards. But yeah, Topuria and Holloway, fantastic fight. Topuria, very exciting fighter. Personally, I have no problem saying he's like pound for pound number 2 right now. I just feel like Makhachev is a little bit more proven right now, but skill wise, they look very close to each other, and I feel uh, they are, they have distanced themselves from the pack for a good amount. If you go by the tradition of MMA of just putting champions, like who comes after, like Merab or Belal Mohammed, I don't feel they are on the level of Makhachev and Topuria. And no disrespect to them, I feel like they are very good, but still. What do you feel like pound for pound? Where does Topuria sit right now?
I'm not really into pound for pound rankings, but I think like if you don't consider him like easily near the top, I think what the hell's wrong with you? Because I mean, people were talking the other day about like the best back-to-back wins ever, and I mean like he just knocked out two of what
Yeah.
like 5 to 6 best guys, and like Max Holloway has been one of the best fighters in all of MMA since like 2016, which is crazy. Still looked like it in this
Yeah,
fight.
Holloway is very underrated as an all-time great.
Yeah, frankly. And Alex Volkanovski speaks for himself as far as how good he is. Topuria ended his reign. And, like, he beat both those guys. Not just knocked them both out in very competitive fights. So, if that's not, like, an indication of how proven he is, like, or where that he belongs near the top, I don't really know what else is.
So yeah, great fight. Sometimes MMA is good. We'll round down the rest of the card quickly because, like, let's be honest, we all wanted to talk about the big one. But quick thoughts on co-main event. It wasn't a very long fight. A bit disappointed on the tactics that Whitaker brought to the table, but at the same time, I was very impressed with Chimaev. Especially, I felt like this was a more mature performance. What surprised me is that he wasn't working that hard. It didn't feel like he was going to be that tired if this went to the second round, right? He was a lot more efficient, I felt. He was like just like hooking the legs, this using the wrist rights to destroy the base. He was not exerting himself very badly. It's still a very physical style, but a big difference between that and the huge mat returns, the carry double leg attacks, and that kind of stuff that we associate with Chimaev usually. And the crazy submission attempts, he just went for one submission attempt and it was the one in this fight. So I feel like it's hard to take a lot from this performance because I feel like Whitaker didn't offer a lot of resistance, but still very promising for Chimaev.
Mm-hmm. To answer your question, Rio, I don't personally hate that he gets hyperbole because he's obviously extremely talented. I do think it's fair to say that he's kind of a little unproven. Yeah, exactly. Like he's not really been forced out of his A game too much, and like the times where he has looked uncomfortable, like against Burns and Usman, like Burns was just a slobber knocker, and Usman's kind of weird because I don't know if he was tired or just uncomfortable, or if he was just trying to like get some rounds in to figure some things out for himself. But I mean, I do think there is some linearity on the feet with him quite a bit that we kind of wanted Whitaker to kind of show with things, but that's not really what happened. But as far as like a grappler, I mean, I think to quote something Ed Gallo used to tell me about Chimaev that I still think's true. He's not the best with like takedowns, but he is really clever at setting them up and thinks in very MMA terms as far as setting things up for grappling exchanges. And when he's on the ground, he's just smothering, and it's clear that like physically speaking, he's just a menace. I mean, I don't know if it was a freak injury or not, but obviously that guy has some fucking torque in his arms.
Yeah.
I mean, but like, yeah, he's obviously really, really talented, but like, I'm not like super sure what to think of him still, but I also don't know if middleweight's the like division amazingly enough to like always answer those questions because middleweight's a bizarre division.
Yeah. What do you feel? Do you like better Du Plessis against Strickland, the rematch, or do we want to see Du Plessis against Chimaev?
Do I want to see a guy who operates at a 1.5? Okay, Du Plessis has the ability to drag people into a hilarious bizarro world, except Sean Strickland. And do I want to see him, like, his physical gifts, though, be tested against a guy who's very physical himself? And see if Chimaev can hold on to the world's most bizarre or like muskrat creature. You know what? Fuck it. Why not? Like, I think like Du Plessis and Strickland wasn't that fun of a fight to watch anyway, so I don't really care to see another one.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't feel like Strickland or Du Plessis are bad fighters. They can be very bad to watch, and I felt one against each other didn't make for a great fight. I've seen they have been in good fights. I felt like Du Plessis put on a good fight against Adesanya, despite all the stupid stuff that happened. But that comes with the territory with Du Plessis. And Strickland obviously also put on a better performance against Adesanya. Very good performance.
For what
there.
It's worth, it's more fun to make fun of Strickland and Du Plessis than praise them. But make no mistake, yeah, they're decent fighters. Du Plessis is like weirdly tactically effective.
Yeah, He's like very stupid and smart at the same time.
He's a malfunctioning robot. I love him. And then Strickland's very, very disciplined. You can tell Strickland spars probably a fuck ton, honestly. Even though like it will always drive me crazy that no one just tries to front kick him more often.
He's the one usually front kicking people, which is the funny part.
Exactly. But I mean, they're good enough fighters. But yeah, Du Plessis versus Chimaev, I think, would be kind of interesting, but also bizarre. And I will always favor seeing something where I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's very intriguing, right? I don't think I would have much to say in a preview to that. There's not much analysis because we haven't seen guys deal with guys like this. But I mean, there's some things to say about Du Plessis wrestling. To be fair, he has looked like a very solid grappler, but the wrestling has looked sketchy at times. Maybe Chimaev can bully him. But the other thing is that Du Plessis is fucking huge. And Chimaev's kind of used to be the bigger guy, but it's interesting. But yeah, I'd rather see that, to be honest. I'd rather see that. Give me the memes because Strickland versus Du Plessis did not deliver the memes the first time, so I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt to give me to give them to me the second time.
Except for the bleaching overhand whale right hand that Strickland threw, but
Okay,
otherwise,
when
and the headbutt.
he started throwing that disgusting right hand from
Yeah,
round 4, I think.
and the two kinds of headbutts. One of them famously given to us by Miguel. Miguel, if you're still
The
here, thank
headbutt
you.
to the hip. Yeah.
And the actual headbutt, but nobody cares. Yeah, give us the new one.
Okay, before that we have Ankalaev versus Rakic. A lot of people shitting a lot of this. I understand a lot of people do not like Ankalaev. I've come around with Ankalaev. I feel like he's perfectly fine. I like the setups that he does with his footwork. I feel like he's active. And to be fair, I before he said that in the post-fight interview, I was agreeing with him. Rakic in the second and third round was not giving him much to work with, and it can be very hard to look impressive against a guy that is just like moving around and not opening up match. Especially because Ankalaev does a lot of his best work when his pressure forces fighters to open up. But I thought it was a very solid performance by Ankalaev, and he took the easy win when it was given to him. I don't blame him very hard over that. I blame Rakic for not trying harder to win this fight, to be honest.
Yeah, I think like Rakic is interesting because like you can kind of see a lot of the utilities and tools for someone who might be like a lot better than they are. He just hasn't ever really put it together. Ankalaev, yeah, I don't really have a negative to say about Ankalaev, but he's also just not going to be like a divisional favorite. A, because it's light heavyweight, and then your options are either super violent guys or really silly guys, and Ankalaev's just kind of normal.
Yeah.
But there is some things to like against Rakic, even though Rakic kind of gave it to him, like Ankalaev does show some knack for cutting off the cage, actively employing double threats, constantly like looks for the open hand fight to set up said double attacks. I would be a little interested to see how he approaches Pereira when they fight, because Pereira's the kind of guy who's going to punish like very certain mistakes, and I do think Ankalaev is a little rear hand heavy and likes to hand fight instead of like employing an active jab. So I'd be interested to see how that goes. Would be an interesting test for both.
Yeah, I feel like Ankalaev is pretty decent with the lead hand, but in certain circumstances, and I was surprised that Rakic was not trying to win outside foot position a lot in this fight because he was circling into the left, but taking care about it. He wasn't dumb about it. It wasn't like, oh, you cannot circle into the left of a southpaw. Rakic was doing a lot of that, but with good distance and stuff. But Ankalaev is pretty quick to immediately throw the jab when you try to step on the outside. And that's an habit that I like a lot against most fighters. But it could get him in trouble against Pereira, who has like a very dangerous counter left hook and is very long. But if Ankalaev, the thing is that for all the shit that he has taken for the leg kicks that he took against Blachowicz, actually pretty decent about shaking body kicks. We saw quite a few of those in this fight. And Pereira has shown some vulnerabilities when he gets his kicks counter. We saw that against Khalil Roundtree. But the consequences here would be a lot worse if he were to get taken down, because Ankalaev is a monster from top position, and we know that it is very likely that Pereira is not all that from the bottom, so... Okay, I lost Dan for a little bit.
No, I'm still here.
He's back.
I'm still here.
He's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So I was saying that.
I'm still here.
So I was saying if Ankalaev gets on top position, that's very interesting, right?
Well, Feño?
Yeah?
Feño.
You cannot hear me?
Feño. He's dead.
Oh no, he lost me now.
Feño is dead. That's great.
Okay, we're having a little bit of like connection issues right now.
You can hear me. Okay, I see a screen.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with me.
I can't hear you at all, though.
Okay. we'll start the call again, and people will be able to hear us. So. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can the terrifying chat of death hear us, though? Is the question.
I think the chat can hear us. Let me adjust your screen, and we should be fine.
Chat, if you cannot hear us, please raise your hand.
Raise your hand. We are seeing you, all of you. Okay, Nelson says that he's hearing us fine, so we're back. Okay, so that's for Ankalaev. Hopefully he fights Pereira. I know people likes to laugh about it, but I feel like the title shot needs to do. Let's stop fucking around. And make Pereira fight a wrestler for once. And it's a wrestler that might even know wrestle, so just make the fight. Before that, we had a fight between Leron Murphy and Danige that was very good, actually. What were your thoughts about this one?
So I liked Ige's start because I think Ige has always struggled to employ range tools, which is something that bit him later on as this fight goes. But he got right in Murphy's face, constantly like leading with the feet, cutting him off, and then punishing to make sure that like he was either first or last in the exchanges. And then so if Murphy stepped in, he was always like ready on the hair trigger for the counter. So that got Murphy hurt a few times in the first. But Murphy kind of figured out that like at distance, Ige was kind of inert. So he just kind of like kept poking and prodding at him. And then it kind of just worked to let him get back into the fight. The other reason it worked is because Ige kind of has this issue where if you feint at him or throw stuff at him, his guard's like super reactable. So when round 3 comes out after his coach like ripped at him, I think it was Nick Sack, and
yes, Nick Sack.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, you gotta get back in his face again." So when Ige tried doing that, Murphy did what he did in round 2 and drew Ige's guard immediately. So it just let Murphy like get out of danger a lot. But then again, like some interesting tactical or like wrestling scrambles happened, but it was a good fight.
That was solid, and it was solid. It was a solid showing by Murphy. I mean, it positions him like I would be very interested to see more Murphy on 5 rounds because I feel like he gets better as the fight go on. Here on Ige, you have a fighter that has decent cardio, and even though he got tired, he went for it hard on the 3rd round. And Murphy still competed well with a guy that can do a little bit of everything, and is very dangerous as a puncher. So I like Murphy a lot, and maybe like Murphy with 2 more wins, he could get into like a title fight picture. Maybe I feel like he has the qualities too, but sadly he doesn't have like a very like fan friendly style. He's not that big of a finisher. But I like Murphy. He's very solid. Maybe one of my favorite featherweights. For Ige, back to the drawing board. He's like assuming this role of a gatekeeper now. But you know, always beating Ige is always impressive, I would say. And then on the opener of the main card was Charabulet against Armen Petrosian. A lot better than I was expecting actually, because Charabulet showed up with improved counter boxing, and the kicking battle was interesting because both guys, you can tell that they are like nuanced kickers that were playing off the reactions of each other. An interesting battle of leg kicks and body kicks. Both guys using interesting setups with his feints to get the kicks going. And then you had the pressure of Petrosian, but Magomedov, who like moves laterally fine, but it's still kind of easy to pressure. But he was making sure to like fire his very quick counters and then getting off an angle. Maybe not with like tight pivots, but like he's like quick. He has quick feet, so he can like sidestep very easily out of exchanges. It's going to. I feel like it's going to be harder to pressure him than I initially thought when it comes to Chara Bullet, to be honest. What were your thoughts on this one?
So I never watched Shara before. I think like mainly like there's a lot to be desired as far as his defensive footwork and like ability to create range for himself, but he's weirdly better on the counter. Especially like as far as using like a body kick to close distance. No, sorry, close the exchange. I think he's particularly a fan of that one.
Yeah.
I don't really have too much to say about him. I think Petrosian kind of had the right idea, like working behind the jab and kick interplay, like corner him. It's just he couldn't really get by the dynamicism. And, then there was the knockout itself. And I'm not really a big fan of Shara, but that knockout was fucking cool.
Knockout was so good. Like if you cannot acknowledge that, you're just a hater because like I've been a certified Shara hater, and let me say that that knockout was fucking great. and like and it was cool that and for whatever reason people appreciate it more when you have footage of the guy like drilling that before doing it, and he was doing that on the open workouts before this fight. So for all people that likes that, you have that. So but yeah, I mean, I feel like he's an interesting addition to middleweight. I feel like a lot of fighters could have trouble with him. I would be very intrigued to see a fight with someone like Imavov, because that would be interesting at long range, because both guys are like quick, good kickers. I would say Imavov is probably the better boxer, but Chara may be more dynamic, more dangerous moment to moment. So that would be interesting. And then you have fights like against, I don't know, Brendan Allen, who is a good grappler. So maybe we could see that something that we haven't seen from him. But I'm okay with Chara Bullet. It's not that I'm a fan now, but he's fine. He's not awful. Maybe the hype is undeserved, but he's okay. Not gonna hate too much. Did you watch anything from the prelims?
I got glimpses of them. I saw Orably Rebecki, which was batshit crazy.
That was
I think
that was great.
Yeah, I kept asking myself during that fight, like, Rebecki's dipping a lot. Orably could draw him into a head kick, and he tried, but alternatively, he tried to like kind of bring his head down into the uppercuts. But mainly, like the story of that fight is like whomever kind of got the better of the counter sort of won, and outside of whatever freak accident happened with Orably's eye, and then like how on earth that fight didn't get stopped between that and like the whole third round is beyond me. But honestly, I think the story of it was fucking crazy and awesome.
Yeah, it was actually very good. Like, because it was that kind of a slower knocker that still had some interesting quirks tactically wise. So it wasn't like just a stupid exchange after stupid exchange. You can tell that both guys were looking to make adjustments and had to dig like very deep, especially during the grappling exchanges late in the third round. Both guys very good wrestlers, so they got to show off a little bit of that at the end. Did you watch anything else?
Let me think. I think I got some glimpses of. I saw. All I know is the Igbo ASEAN guy. I don't know how to say that. Quickly finished the other dude, and it was like, "Aha! I'm here for this division. Be hyped!" And I don't know anything else about that.
It's the most like heavyweight fight of all time.
I think RDA's knee exploded, from what I understand. Don't know how, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was very weird and sad, and it was also like RDA's birthday, so it was very sad.
It was his birthday.
Yeah, it sucked. Yeah,
it sucks. I caught glimpses of the Magomedov Ferreira fight, which I don't have a great recollection of, but I forgot that Magomedov had been finished by Strickland via strikes, and that alarmed the shit out of me when I discovered that. Otherwise, it just kind of seemed like he gassed out and then, like, weirdly, like, outlasted the other dude.
Yeah, it was very weird because it was looking like, oh, this is the Strickland and Caio fight again. And then he came alive and got a submission. It was weird, but good for him, right?
Yeah. Chris Barnett broke his own leg off of a super jump, and then which killed the hype of the fight with Kennedy. I can't say the last name because I'm bad at it.
Seshuku, yeah.
Nujek. Yeah, see, I can't do it.
Nunchucks. Just said nunchucks.
No. And so yeah. Don't break your leg. If someone says break a leg, they don't mean good luck. For future
Yeah,
reference.
those theater kids, they
Those
are lying
fucking
to you.
theater
They are
kids.
just trying to kill you.
Yeah. And then,
never trust a theater kid.
And then I heard somehow Renat won another fight he shouldn't have, but that's all I remember.
Yeah, this one was insane. Renat is like on the craziest like robbery streak on the UFC right now. So
Yeah, that's all I.
and it's
that's all I
crazy
know.
because I don't think Renat is bad, but he's not winning this fight, so it's very weird. But yeah, I mean, we were all here for the main event either way, and it was a very good fight. So. So tell our people that are you working on anything or are you just taking it easy right now?
I was considering writing something about Holloway Taporia, but then I realized like I put too much pressure on myself with articles, so I'm probably not going to. So technically, I'm not really doing anything besides just vibing, finding clips that I think are cool, and just talking to people.
Yeah, you've been getting into the clips thing, and you've been posting a lot of cool stuff. So it's fine to have like. Company.
I'll pretend I'm retired, and then I'll come back to it just for fun.
You know,
and
then Albert will be back.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be if something interesting happens. Who knows? I may just show up for the day they finally make Duplessis fight the Iron Turtle. Well, but you know.
That's what we need. That's what people want. Yeah.
That's what people want. Yeah, because if other dreams are currently dead, we might as well just create new ones. But yeah, you know what? Sometimes MMA is really cool. I was surprised at this card. It was way better than most cards I remember in a while, to be honest.
Yeah. I think. Oh, we have Ronan. Ronan, you're kind of late. We're kind of saying goodbye right now, but.
Yes, Ronan, you're very, very late. You are the latest of the late. We are like, I think, wrapping up unless he or I somehow segue into something stupid.
Please say something quick if you want us to stay here for like another 5 minutes.
I guess also if you have any questions, interesting.
Yeah, if you have like quick questions,
you want to bounce off of us.
If anyone has like any quick questions that we can like rapid fire before leaving, that would be okay. I'm not sure, Ronan. I wait. Like, who is champion? Like, he doesn't have a lot of competition right now. So.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person because you're asking a neurodivergent man here. So I'm definitely disqualifying myself.
Do you think Renat is a booty burglar? We need to see him in the Valetudo shorts first. Why didn't Nemeth die against Topuria? Because he's a golem. That's the only explanation, right?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows, right?
I think also Topuria didn't really realize I needed to put this guy away. He probably was just like, okay, I have him under control. Whereas with Holloway and Volkanovski, it's like, oh, this is too competitive. Like, you could argue that's the other alternative.
Good game plan against Topuria. We took quite a few avenues, but if I want to be like super quick, I would say someone that boxes well on the outside with straight shots, feints a lot, and someone that can kick and clinch competently well. That would be my guess. Someone that can use the clinch to regain center of the cage and do damage with elbows and knees, and someone that can use the kicks to attack Topuria for standing heavy on his front foot from moving his head. That I would say that would be like a good avenue for beating Topuria.
Mm-hmm. Topuria versus the lightweight top 5. Who knows? Because you're going up a weight class. Nobody knows.
Yeah, Topuria.
What the fuck?
Topuria is not huge, but let me check like the rankings like real quick, and I'll just bullshit you. I guess Islam, obviously the champion. I feel like too big. That's my gut instinct about Islam versus Topuria is that Islam is too fucking big, right? And he's also a southpaw kicker, so that's interesting. But we've seen like Volkanovski has success like pressuring and going hard with the punches and then getting top position against Islam, and that's something that maybe Topuria can do. So that's very interesting. Sarukian, that's interesting because Sarukian is a kicker. He kicks a lot. He has volume, but he's not very structured on the feet. I would feel like Topuria has an advantage. Sarukian also not very tall, so Topuria might get to him. Slightly tipping over to the Topuria side on that one. Just in Geiji, they would beat the shit out of each other. That would be insane. But I gotta go with Topuria at this stage, right? Then you have Poirier. That one is very interesting, but I feel like Poirier is kind of getting old. But that one sounds crazy because, like,
yeah, I think my initial instinct is like, okay, Poirier is a lot harder to catch unless you like have setups, but he also has like the best right hook that off of a close stance matchup that Topuria has ever dealt with, and is probably able to even him out in the firefight without being afraid of it. So, yeah, I think Poirier would be really difficult.
yeah, and if we ignore Holloway and go Hooker, Hooker would be very interesting because Hooker is fucking big and kicks a lot, kicks to the body. He's a good grappler, so it's not easy to just get takedowns on him. Obviously, Hooker can be hit by a short, explosive guy, as we saw with Chandler, but it would be very interesting, to be honest.
Holloway versus Hooker. I feel like Holloway would be too versatile for him, to be honest, on the outside. I think Hooker would especially hate the body kicks.
Yeah, Hooker's so fucking big, man. Hooker is very big. No idea how he used to make 145, but making 145 again as an over 30-year-old man was such a stupid decision. And he paid for it too, so. But yeah, I mean, we're assuming that Hooker is not fighting Conor McGregor because Conor McGregor is not ever fighting again, so that Hooker versus Holloway is fine, man. To be honest, I wanted to see Hooker versus Charles Oliveira instead of Oliveira versus Chandler again, which makes no sense. But yeah, okay, everyone, thank you for joining in. This was a lot of fun. It's always very interesting to talk high-level fights with my friend Dan because he's always so insightful and comes with the details. He does his homework. Even though he's making the ice there, like, he does his homework. So you can find a link to Dan Albert's Twitter on the description. It's been there the whole time if you don't follow him already. Any parting words, Dan?
For those of you who are sad about Holloway getting knocked out, it's okay. Everything will be okay.
Everything will be okay.
And it could have been worse. It could have been Robbie Lawler, Tyron Woodley.
It could have been against Paddy Pimblett.
Could have been against Paddy Pimblett.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for leaving. I'm Feño. This is Dan Albert.